Welcome everybody to Studio C, the listening room. I'm Andy Schiller.
And I'm Mike Snyder-Barker, otherwise known as Bark's Tales.
And this is episode 26.
Is it really?
Wow, we're getting up there.
Yeah, we've had weekly episodes. And this is Kinks Heiss, who...
Round of applause.
Yay! Who I've been friends on Facebook with this gentleman, and we've never actually had a conversation before this morning. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. And I understand that you're a singing drummer.
Yes, I started out as a singing drummer.
Yeah.
I bought my own set of drums with my own money when I was 14.
Oh, nice.
And everyone says, "How can you sing and play at the same time?" Well, I got that set of drums. I didn't have a band, so I'm singing and playing the drums. And, and so that's kind of how it all evolved.
You just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get my first drum set till I was about 19 or 20. I bought it with some of my college loan money.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But for both of us, that was 100 years ago.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So what made you interested in playing the drums?
Well, I had an older brother and lived out in the country, and then our neighbor, my brother's 3 years older, our neighbor was 4 or 5 years older. We'd be out in the woods running around, getting wet foots in the creek and all that. And all of a sudden, Steve, the oldest guy, he says, "Hey, it's 4 o'clock. We got to watch Bandstand." So we'd go to his house or our house.
American Bandstand,
and I was just a little kid, you know.
Yeah.
And every day almost we'd watch Bandstand, and I didn't know the difference from a bass guitar and a guitar. I didn't really know much difference between a keyboard, a piano, and an organ, and I didn't know the different saxes. And some would have saxes, some would have keyboards, some wouldn't, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Every one of them had drums.
Yes.
I said, that's what I'm going to do.
I watched that show too. Yeah, we had a lot of times they kind of mimed the performance, but no one really cared because everyone's dancing and you got exposed to new songs.
And I'll give that song a 10.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember Dick Clark. So a lot of us grew up on him. Yeah. But so, tell us about your very first band.
My very first band never went anywhere. We never had a bass player.
They never do.
Yeah. But my first working band was a band. The bass player and lead singer were from here in Tecumseh.
Oh, really?
And we were called Earth Star.
It's a cool name.
And we played at there's a place called the Teepee Town.
Okay.
And we used to play there. I think that was in Adrian, though, right? The Teepee Town.
Teepee Town. Oh gosh, that was on 223.
Yeah, and
that was tore down probably 20 years ago.
Yeah, and so it burnt down. Yeah. I had nothing to do with it, I swear. I don't know how my fingerprints got on that gas can.
I wasn't going to say anything. But, I mean, we have some people here that are famous, Michigan famous, and some people here that are infamous. And are you either infamous or Michigan famous?
Pretty much Michigan, I guess.
A lot of friends are Michigan famous, but Earth Star at the Teepee Town. That sounds like a good time.
And you were the drummer and the singer?
Well, I was. We had a lead singer in that band, but I sang harmonies, and I would sing maybe lead 4 or 5 songs a night.
That's what they allow the drummer.
Yeah, right.
Kind of like the Ringo thing.
Yeah. So then what happened with Earth Star is our lead singer went to prison for selling narcotics to an undercover agent. And then we had the bass player that was from here, and the 2 guitar players were brothers, and they were from Pinckney or somewhere.
Okay, wow.
And so when we lost the lead singer, the bass player said, "Well, I'm going to do this, Kinks. What are you going to do?" And the Wagner brothers, they were going to. I said, "Well, I'm just going to stick with those guys. They were hellacious guitars. They were really super nice guys." And so we started looking for a bass player. We found this guy out of Detroit, and he was really good, cool guy, and all that. So we started rehearsing with him, and then last minute he decides he wanted his old drummer back. So I got kicked to the curb.
Oh, man.
And right after that, the Wagner brothers' sister was married to Rob Nally of Nally Music in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
That's a famous name.
And Ted Nugent did all his business there.
Yeah.
So then Nugent got rid of Derek St. Holmes, his whole band, and then hired these guys.
Oh man!
And they brought in the other guy's drummer instead of me. Missed it by that much.
So you were Pete Bested.
Yeah. And he
for you kids, that was the drummer before Ringo Starr and the Beatles.
So anyway, this guy, he was a good drummer and all, but he couldn't play with a metronome.
Oh.
And I practiced 1 hour a day with the metronome, minimum. Sometimes I'd get into it, I'd be watching the clock, and I'd say, hell, I'm going to keep going, you know. So anyway, he got in the studio, and they recorded an album, and they toured with Nugent. Nugent stole a couple of their songs. And
of course.
I don't remember, I have the album, but the song Tail Gunner is on there. So that's the album they're on. Okay. And the Wagner brothers had a third brother, younger brother, to play guitar. So he had all three of them on stage. Oh, he called it his guitar army. And anyway, the middle brother, after that tour and all that, he quit music altogether.
Oh, that burned him out?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, man.
And I did try to get something with the Vern, the oldest brother, and I don't know, we could never get anything together or whatever. So that was my first working band, though, you know.
Yeah. You know, it's so hard to sometimes stay friends or friendly with old band members. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got one guy, John, who I'd love to play with again, but, you know, I've got a band now with Andy playing guitar. Mm-hmm. You know, it happens like that.
Well, I will say, though, one of the Wagner brothers borrowed a SM-57. I never got it back. Borrowed
so track this dude down.
Yeah, and so it borrowed a dress shirt for, you know, oh, Kinks, could I wear one of your shirts? And never got it back and stuff. But that's minor, you know, really.
You know, if that's the worst thing that's ever happened in your life, then it's been a good life.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, then after being in that working band, I got a call from a guy. He had a band called the Greg Stevens Band, and he was out of like Dexter, Pinckney area, and all the bars out there had live music.
Yeah.
So I worked for the Greg Stevens Band for quite a while, and the guitar player, Steve Summers, is you know him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's running the music program at WCC.
Yeah, and he's a jazz local in Ann Arbor.
Right. And so, matter of fact, I started going to some of his shows. Yeah. he called me up, you know, and he says, so what do you want to do, Kinks? I said, I don't know, you know, tore down or what? Mm-hmm. He said, well, what about Miss You? I said, I don't know the words to Miss You. He says, you're not singing, you're playing the drums. And which I loved. I'm hooked on the drums again now, you know.
Okay, cool.
And when I got done getting back to metronome, there were older guys in the band, and half those guys said, man, you were rock solid. You didn't drift anywhere. Because that metronome really makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and at rehearsal, we'd have that running in through the click track, running through the PA.
Well, that's smart.
And then we'd go to a gig, and it was like one of our members was missing, Mr. Click.
Right.
Yeah, I remember I was in a band out west. It was Deep Green Nation, and we had a producer really super interested in the band and wanted to record our album, and he came to the practice. All right, guys, let's hear every song with the metronome. And like, we couldn't do it. You know, we had to go through a couple more weeks of practice before we could even play the songs with the metronome. And he just insisted on that. So it made us a lot better, but it really frustrated some of the musicians.
Some drummers I know tell me that the metronome or the click track it steals your soul. And I don't exactly disagree. Yeah. I'm a friend with Wilson Owens. He was Mitch Ryder's drummer for 8 albums.
Okay.
And if you look up, he's on some live stuff. And he'd never worked with the metronome, ever. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Johnny Benagic, he was in the same band, sort of, at different times with Mitch Ryder. Right. And this is after the Wheels and all that.
Right.
and I don't know if he did a metronome or not, but believe it or not, the musicians said they liked Wilson Owens drumming better than the
Really?
B, you know.
Wow, but the B is really fun to watch.
Yeah. And I'm kind of friends with him. I've run into him a few times and stuff.
Yeah.
He's a real nice guy.
A friend of mine has played with him, a guy named Todd Perkins.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
Todd real well.
Yeah. I played with
Great
him
guy.
for a couple of things.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I love
Cool.
Todd. I'd love to get him on here someday.
Yeah. So after the Greg Stevens band, if you want to keep going,
Sure.
then I got in a band with John Anthony and Legend. And he played the Chitlin circuit out there, and we went as far as Jackson and stuff,
Okay.
you know. And he was a real personal bull. He'd call me, say, Kinks, Jackson, such and such, be there. You know, he wouldn't say, well, I got this job in Jackson, and are you available? You know?
Right.
And I think I was with him for a couple of years, maybe
he's
3 years.
No nonsense guy.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And then I went from that. I think then I got called back to the Greg Stevens band, and Greg Stevens says, "Do you want to make $1,500?" I says,
No.
"Well, yeah."
No.
And so he said, "Well, I've got that many gigs lined up, and I need a drummer." So I went back with him for a while, and then after that, I ended up with Billy Mack and the Kickback Band.
I've met Billy Mack.
Yeah, super nice guy.
Yeah.
Great voice.
Yeah.
And so I was with him for about probably 3 years, working
Okay.
almost every weekend, you
Yeah,
know.
nice.
And then he would just out of nowhere just fire the whole band. He's having issues, so he's blaming it on the band. And I'll tell you, if he ever hears this, it's the truth though. I finally says, Billy, do you ever think it's not the band, but maybe the man in the mirror you're having problems with? You know.
He didn't
No
like
one
that.
likes to hear that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So anyway, then he hired the whole band back again because he had gigs, you know.
Yeah.
And I was the last one to get called back, and the other guy saying, call Kinks, and he
Yeah.
finally called me. He went
Okay,
back
yeah,
to do it.
yeah.
He had a lot of cool originals, kind of a rockabilly thing.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah,
kids
I
were
saw-
real little, and back then it was cassettes.
Yeah.
So I'd be playing the cassettes all day long. I was Mr.
Yeah.
Mom, so I'd be playing the cassettes all day trying to learn this stuff, right? And then and my kids learned the lyrics and all that to the songs, you know. And now my third son Jerry, his band is called Jeremiah Mack, from Billy Mack, Jeremiah Mack and the Shark Attack.
Oh,
There you
that's
go.
nice.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
nice.
and he writes and he sings
Cool.
lead. He shreds a guitar. He can play any instrument. He's one of them
Oh.
guys that just pick up anything. And
This is your son.
yeah.
You're really proud of him.
All he does is gives lessons and plays live. you know.
Nice. Whereabouts is he?
Well, he lives in Ipsy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
About
cool.
and I'm just about 6-8 miles south of Ipsy.
Sure.
And he
Sure.
inherited my old studio when I got
Oh.
divorced.
Okay,
So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. But so what happened after the Billy Mack band?
Well, okay. Then what happened was we needed a bass player. Seemed like that always happens, you know.
Yeah.
We needed a bass player.
We all
and-
need a bass player.
Yeah. And so I had this friend named Randy Brown, and he wanted to audition for the band. But Billy had this other guy. He's a pretty good bass player nowadays, but back then he was he couldn't sing and
Were
play.
we all?
Pardon me?
Were we all so back then?
I don't know what you got, but I wasn't. and so he really wanted this so bass player, and I wanted Randy Brown. He
Right.
was in a wedding band. He was in an Elvis tribute. This guy had the chops,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Super nice guy. And so he says, well, I'm not going to hire your buddy Randy, and because you and him are buddies, I'm going to let you go too. And it's like, oops.
What?
Yeah, right. And it bothered me because I like playing, you know.
Well, sure.
So Randy said to me when I told him that, he says, well, screw him, man. Can I say that?
Yes.
he said, well, screw him, man. Let's put our own band together.
Yeah.
And as we just mentioned earlier, bass player is the hardest to find.
Yeah.
And he sang,
Oh,
and I
nice.
sang.
Nice.
And so he knew this guitar player named James Brown Eagle Nemi.
Okay.
We brought him in and put Kinks and the Crew together. Crew with a K.
Yeah.
And we worked for almost 10 years. Actually, I had Kinks and the Crew for even longer.
See, I thought I recognized-
Yeah,
Yeah, I
James
recognized
took
him.
off around the end of that,
Okay.
you know.
Very cool.
And so then I did that for a long time,
Yeah.
and then I was still doing Kinks and the Crew when I when the Robert Plant, thing came along where
Yeah.
everyone thought I was. One time I was at a Robert Plant show in Ann Arbor, and some guy, the bathrooms were downstairs or something, and I'm coming back for the bathrooms. Guy's coming in. This guy ran up to me, took a selfie, and he's going, "Oh, thank you," and I never said a word because I didn't want to rain on his parade.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Work on your British accent.
Yeah, right.
I saw Robert Plant at Hill Auditorium.
Yeah, I think that was the show.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah, and I looked all over for you.
I know. And if I'd known you, I'd have looked for you too.
Yeah, yeah, and
Good
he
show.
played Ann Arbor 3 or 4 times, I
Yeah.
think. He didn't have Alice and Krauss though. I think they were an item and they broke up. See.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that's the only Grammy. Zeppelin never got a Grammy.
Oh yeah.
But
I know.
with the duet with Alice and Krauss, that was a
Yeah.
Grammy.
And that was
album.
genius, and that was a wonderful record.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And so then you became the tall, cool one.
Well, so then what I did, so I still had my trio, and so I called this buddy of mine I grew up with named Ronnie Richards, rockin' Ronnie Richards, and I says, hey, you want to come in and play drums for our last set? We're going to do some Zeppelin. So I gave him the songs we're going to do, and we started doing that. And it pretty much took off from there. And believe it or not, I still have that drummer over 10 years later.
Oh, isn't it
He's still
nice?
buddies of mine. We grew up together.
That's
we,
so nice.
we went to the same school, rode the same school bus,
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be in a band with them because
Right.
both being drummers.
Right, right. No, but so, do you write songs?
No, I was in a band called The Cohort back. I didn't kind of put that in my list because we worked some, and we had some originals in that one. I wrote one called Dangerous Diane.
Oh.
And I'm a Beach Boy freak, so I wrote this, like I had a middle part, she's dangerous, Diane, and another guy going, woo, or something, And believe it or not, I had that song on a cassette, and I've seen the Beach Boys 30 times probably.
Sure.
And so Jerry Schilling, who used to be with Elvis, was managing the Beach Boys at the time. I somehow didn't really get backstage, but somehow got next to him, and I knew what he looked like, tall guy and all that. And he was the one that turned Elvis on to uppers, as a matter of fact. So, sorry, Jerry. So anyway, I handed him the cassette with Dangerous Diane on there, So the bridge goes, the first line is, she rides around all day in her Ford Convert. She rides, whoa, she rides.
Yeah.
Nothing gets in her way. She never gets hurt, And then the bridge is, and when the stars come out, the top goes up or something, and I don't remember. But I re-recorded it with my sons.
Oh, nice.
And my one son played, 3 of my sons play sax, so one of them did a sax solo in
nice.
there and stuff.
So all of your children are musicians.
Yeah, my daughter plays flute, but she gave it up after high school.
Yeah.
And my youngest son is a sax. Well, 3 of my 4 sons are sax players,
Nice.
and the 4th one is a bass player.
Nice. Andy's daughter plays.
Cello.
Oh, really?
Just went to Masta summer camp, and I went to a orchestra concert yesterday and got to see
neat.
all the kids play. And it's music teachers, like the music teachers that teach at school go to the summer camp and they teach kids during the summer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And wow, the teachers were great. The orchestra sounded good. It was a smaller group than last year she went to Blue Lake, which was like 1,000 kids,
Yeah.
right? But this one was only like 100 kids, so it was a fraction of the size,
Yeah.
and so it was a little bit more comfortable. It wasn't, it's summer camp. It's not supposed to feel like Manhattan, right? So it was
Right.
a lot more relaxed, like a smaller crowd of people. You could make friends more
Yeah.
with the kids.
Well,
And,
my daughter played flute, and Cardi's Music went belly up, and they had a big sale auction or
Cardi's
whatever
Music,
it was.
yeah.
And so I scored a high-end Yamaha flute for my daughter for $100 or
Oh,
something,
man.
brand new,
Man.
And I knew the guys that owned college. I can't think of the name. It just blew my mind.
Cardi's?
And they called me one time, and they got like 6 drum kits delivered in crates. They hired me to open the crates, set the drums up. They had a practice room, so set them up in
Yeah.
the room, tune them, and then put them out on the floor.
Okay.
and they were buddies. I was buddies with them, right? And so and that was there for probably about 5-6 hours, and I took and made took my a screw gun with a clutch so it wouldn't strip out, and I made a drum key. I cut the ears off and put it on there, and I
Nice.
could quick zip the heads on
man.
and all that, and get them sounding pretty decent. Put them out. So after I did the 6 kits, they said, "Well, what do I owe you?" I said, "Well, just give me that Zildjian symbol over there."
I work for Zildjian, so please, instead of food and money, just give me a symbol.
Yeah, really.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I saw that picture of Viv on Facebook this morning, just sitting there playing her cello. She looked pretty relaxed.
Neat.
Yeah, and here's the thrill for me. She got finished with summer camp, and I was like, Dad, I want to sit. Can we go home and go to your studio? Because I want to open up Logic Pro and record a song. And I was like, I'm so proud.
Sweet,
Like,
yeah,
wants to be an
yeah.
engineer and create a song.
Wow.
And feeling
That's-
inspired.
yeah.
So
How old is she now?
just turned 13.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I'm the kind of dad, like, I got her, like, a wah pedal and a pickup and a little
yeah.
amp and stuff. And,
Yeah,
I wanted
that's
to,
really
like,
cool.
shred on it. But
Yeah.
she's playing
Well-
Bach and Beethoven, and I'm hoping that she'll play Metallica, but we'll see.
Well, my daughter, Katrina, she's my only daughter. She played the flute, and she was in marching band. And after 2 seasons of that, or maybe it was 1 season, I think it was 1 season of doing the marching band, she says, Daddy, I'm sick of walking backwards trying to play my flute, because they had the show, and you had to stand here and follow them and all that. So she quit the marching band and became a cheerleader.
Oh.
And she was so petite that she became the flyer. And the flyer is the one when they stack up and she's on the very top.
Yeah.
And she said she was really nervous.
Well, yeah.
And she said that the coach said, just close your eyes, they'll catch you. I hope. And then her senior year, she was still on the squad, but they got even a smaller girl. She became the flyer. And the very last game, she said to the coach that she says, I want to fly tonight. This is my last game. And they let her fly.
Oh,
So-
good. Very nice. So, what's one of the most interesting experiences you've had at a gig or, something related to music?
Well, when I'm trying to remember what band this was. I was in a band, and I guess it was Greg Stevens.
Okay.
And he had a friend from East St. Louis.
Okay.
And his name was Herb Sadler.
Okay.
Herb Sadler was the second guitarist in the Ike and Tina Turner Review. And I checked him out, so I went online to make sure he wasn't jiving me. And sure enough, here he is, the only white guy in the band, rocking, And we toured Canada, and a bass player, one of the best bass players ever, French is his last name. He passed away just a couple years ago. And anyway, he and I and the guitarist, I don't think it was Summers by then, we had a different guy, but we toured Canada. So I worked with, Herb Sadler.
Oh, man.
He gave me a bass guitar.
Really?
Yeah, a short neck,
Okay.
an older one and all that. And he was a super nice guy.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm sure you've rubbed elbows with some other folk.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I played drums for Scott Morgan from the Rationals back in the day. They had that hit "Respect" before Aretha did it.
Right.
And
I've
it was
heard
nationwide. That
I've
song
heard
was
that.
nationwide.
I had a harder time with that because, I'm okay with a woman singing it,
Oh.
but I'm a therapist. I think about things pretty
Yeah.
deeply. Yeah.
Well, Scott Morgan, through the years, he's become a friend of mine and all that.
Oh, good.
And they were, he had a gig and needed a drummer, and I think I rehearsed once when I was terrible, to tell you the truth, but because there were a lot of original stuff I
Sure,
didn't know. But
sure.
we did a couple of different biker gigs and stuff.
Yeah.
And the bass player was Ron Cook. On the album is W.R. Cook from the band Detroit, featuring Mitch Ryder. And that was the one that had the song Rock and Roll on there.
Yeah.
And he became a good buddy of mine. And I did some other pickup gigs with him once in a while.
Nice.
The guitarist was Steve Dansby. He's still a friend. And he was in the band Cactus.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was who was the drummer?
Wasn't it Johnny B?
No. He may have been later, but the
But I know
original
his-
one was
his buddy in.
there's two brothers that are drummers, not from Michigan.
Okay. I'm not sure, but I knew that the guitar player was with Mitch Ryder too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Well, that was Jimmy McCarty.
Jimmy McCarty.
Yeah. And so I still, if I go to one of Jimmy McCarty's gigs, he calls me up every time. And I'd learned a Rocket song,
Yeah.
and then he always wants to do Rock and Roll by Zeppelin. He shreds it too, man.
I loved the Rockets.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did too. I went to all their gigs.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I kind of have the look for Dave
Yeah.
Gilbert,
Yeah,
and I would love to do a Rockets reunion thing,
Well, tell Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy, let's do a Rockets reunion. I'm your man,
Right.
And to be honest, I got vision problems, and I can't really drive at night.
Yeah.
So I can't really go out to his gigs because he always plays like Northville and so unless I have a driver, I can't get out there. It's been a couple years.
This growing older.
Yeah, right. That's what it
I've
was.
had cataract surgery.
That's what messed mine up.
Yeah, and I've got this weird thing on my left eye going on.
That's what I got going on. My left eye. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, they botched my left eye. And you kind of lose your depth perception, see?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got hearing aids now.
What?
Yeah. This growing older is just kind of. It's a whole lot better than the alternative.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll take it, man.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
So kind of bringing it back to here and now, then when I started doing the Tall Cool one, the Zeppelin tribute, I actually call it Robert Plant tribute. We do a bunch of his solo stuff, like Gone, and he's got some really good kind of obscure ones that are great songs.
I like Ship of Fools.
Yeah, we do that
really
one.
good.
Yeah, we do that. I've had couples come up to me and tell me how much they love Ship of Fools.
It has that nylon string guitar in it. That's really cool.
I'll tell my guitarist to get some nylons.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I better make sure I say strings because,
Yeah,
Right.
nylon strings. Ba-dum-bum.
I do sing Plant's version of If I Were a Carpenter.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah,
I thought about bringing that into the,
I
group.
just love the way he delivered
Oh, yeah.
the lyrics.
And that's
It's
really what
amazing.
it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a fantastic singer, but you take other people like Alice Cooper, for instance, and I love Cooper.
I love Cooper,
But he's not a great singer,
No, he's a good showman.
But it's good showman. And I always tell people, it's the delivery.
Yeah.
It's the delivery. That's
Right,
what gets you,
right.
Well,
because people don't want to watch bands that are just.
Yeah. Exactly.
If everybody was like John Entwistle, nobody would be interested.
Yeah.
That reminds me of like an interview I read with Gene Simmons. Not that he's a role model or anything, but
Yeah.
the interviewer asked him, "Hey, how long did you know that you wanted to be a musician?" And his response was, "Musician? I never wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a rock star."
yeah. That's a good one. Let me write that down. So anyway, getting back to the here and now, my guitarist in Tall Cool, when I went through, this is my third incarnation of backup guys.
Sure.
He is James Brown Eagle Nemi, and he was with me in Kingston the Crew for almost 10 years.
Nice.
And he lives right around the corner from me.
Convenient. Yeah.
So right now I'll give a shout out. So we had James Brown Eagle Nemi on guitar and backup vocals. We have Rockin' Ronnie Richards on drums. I grew up with from Stony Creek, Michigan, and then we have Patrick Little, and he's an Ann Arbor cat, and he plays keyboards in Lady Sunshine's band and the Switchbacks, and he plays piano.
Yeah.
And well, nowadays he's the organ setting or whatever. But he's our bass player. He's a real team player.
Yeah,
makes
good.
the flyers and does
Yeah.
a lot for us. Younger guy, but we do a couple of songs that have synths in there that he doesn't play the bass. But
Sure.
other than those two songs, he's our bass player, and he
Yeah.
doesn't play bass in the other bands. He loves it, man. He's getting into it.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I've seen the Switchbacks. Great group.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Switchbacks. Yeah,
Yeah.
Michigan famous.
Yeah,
Michigan
are they?
famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that word. Michigan famous.
Yeah, yeah.
Folks from here.
Matter of fact, Janet, the singer, the leader, she lives like a mile and a half from me, out in the country also.
Nice. If I ever moved away from Tecumseh, I'd want to live in Ypsilanti.
Yeah, well,
It's just got a great world of wonderful musicians and just some good people.
And a little bit more affordable than Ann Arbor.
Well, we're not talking about Ann Arbor.
Okay.
I've lived in Ann Arbor a couple times in
Really?
my lifetime. One time in the 90s and then once in 2015. And I kind of like it there. But, Ann Arbor, Ypsi, it's all one big city. It's just, it just has a little different vibe in Ypsi.
Yeah.
People are a little more friendly. And
Well, I grew up in Detroit. Ypsi is more like what could be perceived as my hometown, versus Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor, you got people from all around the world.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
And most of them, if you ask them, well, how'd you end up here? Did you grow up here? They'll say, no. Well, how'd you end up here? Well, I went to school here.
Yeah.
And they all stay,
Yeah.
And I tell a lot of people, Ann Arbor is really unique,
It is.
They're not, I don't know if there's another city in the world like Ann Arbor,
I don't think so. I have a job in Ann Arbor too. I do a little bit of my work here.
Oh, okay.
But I'm majority of the time at a counseling clinic in Ann Arbor.
Oh.
And it's a great town. And
Yeah.
I've met some wonderful people.
I liked going to the old town,
Yeah.
kitty corner from
Yeah.
the Fleetwood.
Yeah.
And they got the best Reuben. The old town got the best Reuben you ever
The
want
old
to get.
town,
Yeah.
yep, they have
I've heard
steaks.
that as a townie's bar.
It is, yeah. As a matter of fact, I years ago, before I got married the second time, my fiance at the time, we rented the upstairs of a house
Okay.
a block away from
Nice.
from the old town, and then the Wagner brothers, this full circle, their sister was a waitress there, a bartender there.
Okay.
So I'd go in there with my girlfriend and fiance, whatever, and I'd sit down and I used to drink scotch with a beer chaser.
Okay.
She'd bring that over and set that
She
down.
would just
and then
know.
she'd say, and which is a good bartender.
Yeah.
And then she'd look at my future wife and she'd say, and what do you want? What do you want to have? And my future wife didn't like that situation. She, for some reason, she was like jealous, or I don't know what. Hopefully, she won't see this. No.
We're sending it right to her.
Yeah, really.
I played the Old Town one time,
Uh-huh.
and I played my cajon,
Oh, yeah.
and I played with Todd Perkins, and a dude named David Roof.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's in Ann Arbor a lot, but he's like north of Detroit somewhere. He's a nice
Flint.
guy.
He's near Flint.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I've known Dave since he was in high school.
Really?
Yeah, and he's been on our podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to look for that
And
one.
David has he's recorded all of my studio records.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So I think 4, and then with a duo, another 3 or 4, and with an old band, just 1. So I've spent a lot of time with Dave. He's a
Yeah,
good friend.
he seemed like a great guy.
Yeah.
He had the drummer, the Big Don.
Yeah, Don.
Yeah, and he was that, and they were doing that Beatle thing.
Yeah, the Invasion.
Yeah, the Invasion, and I swear, Don, he learned those Ringo parts note for note. I mean, I can't play Ringo. I mean, that guy's so backwards and
I
everything.
know.
But he had it
Don was
down.
amazing.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
And I'm actually a licensed builder, and my sons and I rebuilt his deck on the back of his house. He lives up in Howell, and his
he's
front
passed.
porch. Huh? Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's what made me think of it. So David Roof kind of put on a what do you call that? A party, a life party or
Yeah,
something after
yeah.
Don passed.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there really wasn't many people there, but it was out at Kensington Park.
Okay.
And it was the last, they rented a pavilion. It was the very last one. I swear it took me longer to get to that pavilion, because it was only 20 mile an hour and there's bike paths across. It took me longer to get to the pavilion than it did from Ypsi to Kensington,
You probably took the long way around.
Yeah, who knows, yeah.
Yeah, there are 2 entrances.
But then hardly anyone showed up. I was really surprised. I thought it'd be this jam city, and I had my stick bag, and I had my list of songs, and so I don't know if you ever heard of Michael Caton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the
Todd
Boogie
plays
Man.
With, Todd plays with.
Yeah,
him.
right.
Yeah.
Still does. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and Johnny B's played with him.
And so Todd and Michael Caton showed up, and they got up and did 2 or 3 songs, and I could have played with them, but I wanted to sing and play. So there was another drummer buddy of mine there, and I said, "Why don't you play with these guys?" So anyway, what kind of got me is so when they got done playing, and I was the next one up, and there was a rockabilly guy, guitarist there, so I gave him my list and had 4 or 5 songs to do. And Todd and Michael just took off. Didn't even stay to see me play.
Oh
you know?
man.
But
disappointing.
Dave was there running.
Yeah.
He was like the
Yeah.
bassist off and on
Yeah.
for whoever's
Yeah.
sitting in. I always thought for sure maybe I'd get a call from Dave for some studio work or something, though, but didn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still waiting, Dave.
Well, I didn't know Don Denniston all that well because being a drummer,
Yeah.
I was doing my own.
He was a
stuff.
Ludwig man.
I know, and I know he was loved and he's greatly missed. I just didn't get a chance to get to know him so well, and that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
I talked to him sometimes, but not
Well,
in depth.
When we were redoing, meaning my couple of my sons and
Yeah.
myself, when we were redoing his deck, I'd have my sons working, and he and I would shoot the
Yeah.
breeze about music,
Well, yeah,
and all that.
yeah.
So he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a Miata, those
Yeah.
two seaters,
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened is with. I think he had at least 4 Ludwigs. No, he had more than 4 Ludwig kits. He had a bunch of Ludwig
Well,
kits.
now one of them's sitting in David's studio,
Oh well, that's good. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, that's great.
and I've played it actually.
Oh,
It's a
right,
nice
all
kit.
right. And he was real particular. He was with a band called the Chance Band. It was a blind keyboard player.
Okay.
He played the bass lines on the keyboard, on the other hand, and he sang. And Rick Bice was the lead guitarist. He sang and sang harmonies. And I was their go-to fill-in drummer. So if Don was off, or maybe at the time when Don
Yeah.
wasn't in the band,
Yeah.
I'd do gigs with them,
Nice.
and that was a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
I knew they were called the
Excuse me.
Chance Band. They were friends of mine anyway.
Yeah.
So that really worked out fun, and they had a house gig. I think every Thursday in Ipsy. It was the I don't know. It's gone. They bulldozed over whatever the name of the place was, and their drummer they played there 3 nights a week. Well, their drummer lived up in Northville or somewhere, and he
Okay.
had a day gig, so he couldn't do the Thursdays. So, and he had everything set up about the way I do anyway. So
Yeah.
I just show up with my stick bag and jump on and go. It was a lot of fun.
Have stick bag, will travel.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Andy does music for a living. He
Oh,
teaches
really?
music.
Right, I teach lessons here at the studio,
Oh, here.
Exactly, and that's kind of my full-time job.
Oh,
I'm
good for
also
you.
recording bands.
If I may ask, what is the hourly rate nowadays for lessons?
I charge $25 for a 30-minute lesson, but then I don't stare at the clock, so it always goes over.
That's way cheap, though.
Yeah,
It's $100 an hour. It has been
It's-
for
it's
years.
been
Ann
way
Arbor
up there.
for sure.
Well, this is Tecumseh.
Yeah, true.
So, I lowered my rates. I used to run a program in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder Suzuki Guitar doesn't exist anymore, but I was up to 70 an hour to get started, and then I was also I coached a band and they paid me $90 an hour. And it was intense. I did they wanted to do songs from a band called Gasoline. That's a Dutch band or a Danish band, and we sang in Danish. And I had to help the band learn the songs and sing the songs, and $90 an hour. But
Yeah.
we did a couple gigs, and it was pretty serious. And I know how to rehearse bands, and I know a thing or two about recording. So they wanted me. They had gone through a few guys that didn't really know what they were doing, or kind of faking it, or hey, I'm great at guitar, and then they couldn't play. And so once they found me, they were like, hey, can we pay you a month in advance? In fact, we'll pay you a semester in advance.
Oh, wow.
Don't go anywhere, Andy. We
Wow.
want you.
That's
So that
neat.
was a great feeling.
I taught drums for a few years in the studio that I had, and I had I still have 4 sets now, but I had 2 sets set up.
Yeah, so
and
you can play along.
Yeah, that exactly.
Right,
yeah.
And so in other words, you didn't say, okay, here's this, and then you get up and they sit down. By the time they sit
Right.
down, now what was it again?
Right, right.
So I have 2 sets going, and then I'd be just teaching kids. I didn't have the high end stuff to
Yeah.
teach, but just newcomers.
Yeah.
Right out of the chute.
Right.
And so it worked out pretty cool. And so then I would just be doing a two-ta, two-ta, two-ta,
Right.
do-do-do-do-do, two-ta,
Just basic.
and then just play along together.
Yeah.
And finally he would lock in with me or
That's
see,
what I would call
know.
the AC/DC beat.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I had drum lessons for a while when I lived in Adrian. And this guy, Todd Bagden, amazing player, amazing guy. but there was only one drum set.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was tough. We spent more time talking. But I've had guitar lessons with Andy.
All right.
You know, he steered me right, and he
Uh-huh.
said that, you know, it was a little easier for me because I had a good sense of rhythm,
Yeah.
being a drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the patterns were just what I had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I enjoy teaching adults, and I teach a lot of kids. But I had some adults. I had this dentist that took lessons from me, came to me like the whitest guy ever. He's like, Andy, I can't clap on the beat. I'm tone deaf. Please help. And you know what? Through sheer determination and sheer repetition and sheer power of will, that guy learned chords. He learned to tap his foot. He learned to count the beat. Then he was playing Rolling Stones songs 2 years later, and I was just like so proud of him.
Yeah.
That he went from ground zero. And you know, it's great to watch kids grow that fast.
It's rewarding.
I've had little bragging rights here, okay? I've had 3 kids that have achieved success in music, like go on national tours and
Sweet.
sign record contracts and so on. One was Jaden, who opened for what's that band? Spearhead. The guy with the long dreadlocks. Now I'm blanking on his name. But the band is called Spearhead. She was like the opening act for that band and had her own tour bus, and she was 12.
Oh,
I
gee.
had a couple other kids like
Protege.
I had a kid named Rory who was in a band called Sunspot Vibes. Went on a national tour when he was 16. He learned Zeppelin songs and
Oh, wow.
played saxophone and stuff, but his mom forced him to. His mom was like, "You need to learn to read music. I'm going to hire a teacher to come to the house, and he's going to teach you how to read music." And the kid would roll his eyes. But he got it, and he was good. And I've had other kids too. I had one kid from Adrian, Michigan, that took classical guitar lessons with me for 2 or 3 years. Like, that's a short time to say I've played guitar for 2 years, right? Went to Pepperdine University in California and auditioned and got into the music school
Oh, neat.
as a guitar student after only playing the guitar for 2 years.
That's amazing.
Imagine that. And he went
Wow.
on to go out to the Philippines and form a gospel group. And I'm just super proud of him. So one of the great joys of life is to have a student and then to see them get better than you. That's amazing, you know?
Yeah,
I love it.
They
yeah.
put them on the right track, right?
For
You know,
sure.
and you did
Exactly.
the same with the drums. You helped
Yeah,
people just
yeah.
kind of get moving ahead.
Well, I used to, the word kind of got out that I had this recording studio. It was just a 4-track, but we, dump it and start over and all
Like
that.
the Beatles.
Yeah. And so, and I had a big room. So I was looking for a house to buy. And this house happened to be on 5.5 acres. It's just a little 3-bedroom ranch.
No neighbors.
But no, actually there was, but not real close. Well, I soundproofed the walls
Yeah,
with
yeah.
carpeting and all that.
course.
Well, anyway, and it had a big Hastings heater in there, and so it was a big block building, tall ceiling, and all that. And so I'm with the realtor. I went through several realtors trying to find me a house. And I said, well, what about that place out on Stony Creek Road? And she said, well, I didn't think you'd like that place. It was a buddy of mine's mom, And so I said, well, let's take a look at it. So I went, and they opened up that block building and all that. And we walked all the way back. It was like spaghetti acres. So it was a deep 5.5 acres.
Yeah.
Walked almost all the way back to the end and all that. Came back around, I looked back in this what became my studio. I said, well, let's make them an offer. She says, well, don't you want to look at the house? And I did buy that place.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, and of course my wife got that in the divorce, and plus another big house I built way in the back. And but my daughter lives in that house now.
Nice,
See, in the front
nice.
house, we call it the front house. She's in the back house.
Right.
And my son Jeremiah Mack, he uses that as his studio now.
Very nice. Very nice.
So tell us about any gigs that you might have coming up soon.
Well, this won't make the broadcast, but this coming Thursday, we're in Belleville. Belva on the Lake or something they call it, and we're going to do 2 sets. And there's a backup plan too, because there's a church right there, and if it rains, or maybe even the heat, we can go to the church.
Nice.
Right.
So we got that, and then maybe this will make the broadcast. That I don't have the exact date, but we're going to be at the Dexter Legion. They have an outside place now to play, and
When is that going to be?
well,
do you know the date?
I don't, but if you go to Tall Cool One, O-N-E, tallcool1band.com, that will get you to the website, and that's got our whole schedule on it.
Oh, very nice.
We'll definitely put a link down below in the description, so check
that'd be
that
great.
out.
I
You can just
appreciate
click on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you play with Tall Cool One, do you dress up? I mean, do you try to? Do the band members try to?
No,
like
because
Zeppelin,
we
or-
call it a Robert Plant tribute,
Okay.
really. I mean, we Zeppelin's in the big letters, you
Right,
know.
right.
But like this is one of my band uniforms now,
Sure.
There you
tell you
go.
the truth. Yeah.
Right.
And I have a black one, a black vest. I don't wear a shirt under, you know. And
Right,
you know,
right.
Robert Plant, he back in the, you know, he didn't. Most if he did have a shirt on, it was some chick's shirt that from the night before. It doesn't fit him right or anything, you know.
Yeah, he did a lot of bare-chested
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah.
performances.
And he didn't seem to be like a real dancer like Michael Jackson or something.
No.
So they kind of made it easier to do. And you know, I got the pipes for it. You know, I'm singing that stuff in the original key. You know,
Oh, that's nice.
and he's good 5-6 years older than me at least. And on most he's into that Americana now, and so he doesn't really quite rock out, and he's lowered the keys in that. And tell you the truth, that's not my bag, rocking.
Well, and when I saw him at Hill Auditorium some years back, he had a female singer, which was an Alison Crowder.
Right.
And she sang a couple of lead songs. And he had this guitar player, and he sang at least one or two, and Plant kind of sat in the back playing harmonica, just hanging out.
And I try to do that, although most of our stages are so small. But that's one thing I learned with not just Plant, but a lot of lead singers, if they're not singing lead, you drop back. I get back by the drummer.
Yeah.
Let them have. And I thought that was so righteous of Robert Plant to do that.
To me, it showed a lot of great maturity.
Yeah,
I don't have to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
You know, it's about
Exactly.
the band.
Yeah. I try to do that, but most of our stages are not big enough to really get out of the way, you know.
Right,
and I don't want to be right in front of the drummer, you know.
No. I get that, and I respect that a lot.
I remember going to see Dream Theater. Okay, they were one of my favorite bands in the late '90s. I drove all the way to Old Bridge, New Jersey, to go watch them play at the club where they, like just the local bar where they.
Yeah.
It was for fan club members only, which I was in. So I got to go see Dream Theater with like 100 people. It was crazy.
Wow.
But with that band, the singer is backstage when the song starts. Walks out a few seconds before the first verse begins, sings, and then when the guitar solo comes, he leaves.
Yeah.
I'll be damned. Yeah,
And
that's
as soon as the last note of the guitar solo hits, he walks back onto the stage. And so if he's not singing, he leaves the stage.
That's
On
awesome.
every
Completely.
song. It's kind
Wow.
of, I watched
Yeah.
that and was like, what's that guy's problem? But then later I was kind of accepted it, like, oh, he doesn't want to just stand there while the solo's happening. And
Yeah, I'm not a good dancer. In my mind, while the solo's going on, in my mind, I'm playing the drums, you know.
Right.
So,
You know, I saw Song Remains the Same probably 20 times as a
oh,
teenager.
yeah.
That was that.
Me too.
You know, I was really into it. Yeah.
I've only seen it once or twice, to be honest. But
Yeah.
talking about traveling, there was a band called The Stripes, and they were from, Europe. I can't know where. Darn it. Anyway, it was like a kid band, and matter of fact, Don Dennison turned me on to that band, and so I loved them. And they were playing up in Toronto, and my mom's from Canada, and then a buddy of mine, guitarist, his brother is also a musician, and he had a house gig in Toronto.
Very nice.
And it turned out to be just a mile or two from where the Stripes show was.
Oh.
So after the Stripes, I got from the Raz in Ann Arbor. I got the address of the bar and his brother's phone number. So we went to the bar afterwards, and the whole his whole break, he's reminiscing about the Ann Arbor days and all that, you know. So that was kind of a travel. Well, then also the Stripes, and it's spelled Stryps, so not the White Stripes, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, they were playing in Atlanta for this big 3-day festival. And I got my closest friend moved to Atlanta area, and so I called him. I visited him anyway before, but I called him. Yeah, sure, Kinks, you can stay here. And so I got tickets, and neither he and his wife wanted to go. And so I went, and the Stripes were like not well known, and I think they were the first band of the second day or something. So I got there way early, you know, and had I think that may have been the third time or something that I saw him, but. Went all the way to Atlanta to see them. They were good, cool. You know. Yeah. They were real good. It was just, I think it was, I can't remember if it was 2 guitars or maybe just a lead singer and like a trio with the lead singer.
Yeah.
But they were really good band. I don't know what happened to them, you know.
Well,
I think they were from Ireland. That's where they were from, you know.
You know, there are so many really good bands that come and go that hardly get any notice at all.
Yeah. One thing I noticed too at that Atlanta gig is I guess they insisted on having monitors. So it took them a long time to do the sound check because all the other bands, they had the earpieces, which I've never used, and so I don't have a clue, but it took them a long time to get the monitors working right, you know, for that band, you know. Sure. And I got there way early, so I kind of sat through all the sound checking and stuff.
But you were interested in that.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting. That I just figured that on my own, that they're the only ones that wanted monitor speakers.
Yeah. No, that's cool. You mentioned the Rockets earlier. Last time I saw them, I think Jack White put on this festival at MIS. This was probably 15 years ago, and it was the Rockets were there, the Romantics, Sheryl Crow, one of Jack White's bands. And just a whole lot of Michigan performers besides Sheryl Crow, and it was really very cool. But you know, the first time I saw the Rockets, they opened for Jay Giles back at the old Pine Knob.
Oh yeah,
100 years ago.
Pine Knob, yeah.
I
think I saw REO Speedwagon at Pine Knob.
Yeah. Well, I heard about that out at the raceway out there, and I didn't make it or whatever. But it was who else? So it was the Rockets and
it was one of Jack White's bands. Sheryl Crow was there. There's a Black Jake and the Carnies.
Oh yeah, they're kind of from Ipsy. Well, I love those guys.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the guys that plays in that group. I can see his face. He plays drums, but he also plays guitar.
Is he the rockabilly looking dude?
Yeah.
But he actually plays bass. Maybe he plays guitar too. But he's a real nice guy. Don't get me wrong. My oldest son Gabe was in a band with him. They had it was just I don't think they had a drummer. It was just a duo.
Okay.
And they brought my son Gabe in to play sax.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I can't remember what they were called, but they the Gruesome Twosome.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's him.
Yeah. And they used to joke.
I can't remember your name.
they used to not really joke around, but my son Gabe, before a show, he's got his routine. I do too. But you know, he lays out the clothes he's going to wear, and he's always late to getting on the stage. He'll be in the building, but he's not quite ready to get out there or whatever, you know. And they were talking about that. I can't remember the term they used that he was in, but anyway, everyone's got their own routine. I tell you what, on a gig night or a gig day, you might say, I don't want to talk to anyone. You know, I'm gonna save my voice. I don't want any distractions. I'm going over the songs and at home, and I just do that. And if I'm dating someone at the time or whatever, you can meet me at the gig, but you're not coming over to my house beforehand.
Well, you got that routine.
Yeah.
You know, I've performed after a full day of counseling.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I'm not the guy who sits back and says, tell me more. How does it make you feel? I'm not that guy. You know, I'm really interactive, and so after a full day of counseling, it's hard to sing.
Oh, I'll bet.
It's just very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get that, and man, it'd be nice to have that kind of routine regularly.
Well, when I was drumming and only singing a third of the songs, and I didn't have that routine at all. I was in the Carpenters local. I'd bust my ass all day swinging a hammer out in the heat, and then have a gig that night. Now, I can't do that now, man. I definitely, I'm self-employed now, but I mean, I don't work on Friday if we have a Friday gig. I don't work that day.
And that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
And you're still doing some decent paid gigs.
Yeah, and then some that, like Zalgaz is hit and miss, But at least, it's an institution there, And what kind of gets me, I don't like being used, okay?
Of course.
And so all you get there is the door. And for example, a band didn't show up last minute, and he didn't have the guy running the place didn't have time to get another band lined up or whatever, and nobody was there. There's like a bar side and a big room for the band sets up. And so it was dead city. There's like 3 or 4 guys, and I heard about that, and I think it was the Saturday night after. I said, well, hey, how'd you guys do last night? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, how'd you do? And what are you talking about? I said, well, how many people were? Well, there wasn't in here. The band didn't show up, and on and on and on. And I says, well, my point here is I think you should be giving the bands a stipend. Because if we weren't here, you wouldn't be making any money. It'd be like yesterday, I said, and I don't think he knew what a stipend meant. And I was thinking, give each band like $200 to play, and then the door.
Yeah.
As opposed to just the door. We had some with Tall Cool, and we had some gigs where we made $30 a piece, And he didn't know. He went ballistic on me, to tell you the truth. Well, we're not ever going to do that. Are you crazy? And I tried to get the other bands to get behind me on that. But what we're doing now in the last couple years is we just passed the hat anyway.
Sure.
So sometimes you got some generous people out there, and so you might make $1 a piece,
The best money I've ever made on tips, I was playing with this band, and this guy, Cheech, his family was there. And so he sent his kid around with a tip jar. And, who's going to say no to a little kid?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, I used to sell flowers with my kids. I was divorced, and my kids were little, and so instead of going to Chuck E. Cheese like you do at first and going to Cosi, going here and spending money, I decided I have a buddy, and I still get my flowers from the guy that would sell me the plugs, little seedlings. And so during the week after school, my kids would be over and we'd be transplanting them into packs and the baskets, etc., and then go to market. Well, talking about kids, right? And so I would take and leave my little kids there in the booth, and I just get a couple of booths away so I could still see them in that. And they were selling like hotcakes then, But as soon as I'm up there, it's like you couldn't flag them down.
Right.
My daughter had this great idea. She says, "Well, let's get a plastic pitcher." And, like a bar one. And we'll put a bunch of dum-dum suckers in there. And as they're walking away, because, they see me and they're like all of a sudden kind of walking at an angle away, And my daughter would say, hey, it's okay if your little boy has a sucker. And then, you get the hook on him,
At farmers markets and those sorts of gigs, I'll stop what I'm doing when there's a kid. I'll ask what the kid's name is, and then I'll make up a song about the kid or kids.
Oh, wow.
And then they give me tips.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, they
that's
might
cool.
even film it.
Yeah.
And that's really fun it's more fun to me to get the kids engaged.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a
yeah.
goofball. I can be a real goofball sometimes.
Well, I started speaking of kids. I was doing cover with Kinks and the Crew. I was covering "Baby It's You," but I was doing that Smith version with no backup singers and stuff, right? And then at the very end, it's like, "Baby, it's you," and so anyway, there's a little kid on the dance floor. I don't know, yay. And so I kind of slowly eased my way out there. To when that part came around, he took off running. He was scared to death.
Yeah, all those stage experiences. I had a friend that lived in Taiwan, Brian Kleinsmith, if you know who he is. He was an Adrian guy. And he said that they just wanted to have white guys on the stage, white Americans, and they didn't even plug in the guitars. They just they got paid to mime on stage that they were part of the band.
Huh. That would be darn.
Yeah, I mean, people have stories. You know.
Well, I have on YouTube. I have a version of the "Baby It's You" for the Kinks and the Crew, and I think if you look that up, and I swear, I think it's one of my very best performances ever. You know, and believe it or not, I got in a fight with a log splitter, and the log splitter won, so I couldn't play drums. And we had a house gig there every other week, right?
Yeah.
So I was just going to cancel, and I called the other band. He says, well, you idiot. He says, bring in another drummer and sing. So that's when I did that Baby It's You, and the guitar player had an organ also. So that the Smith version is a heavy organ sound.
Yeah.
So anyway, go to Kinks and the Crew with a K, Baby It's You, and check it out. I think it's a great performance, to tell you the truth.
We can put a link to that?
Absolutely.
Oh, all right. All
Yeah.
right. Every now and again, I throw that up on Facebook. You know?
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm not on Facebook as much as I used to be, you know, because I've cut all the political and
Yeah, I was just going to
religious
say
stuff.
that.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of painful to hear what some people think, people that I've previously respected.
Yeah.
I just share songs and leave it at that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Or guitar lessons. Guitar tip of the day.
I want to be political, but I had a girlfriend years ago said, Kinks, if you get up on stage and start talking politics, you're going to lose half your audience.
You always lose half your audience, no matter what you say.
Yeah. So I really backed off on that whole idea. But, you know, I have solar on my house, and I don't pay an electric bill.
Oh, man.
And so anyway, I've come every now and again, there'll be something about solar. One guy wrote, for instance, lately, he wrote, Michigan is just not a good state for solar. So I had to comment. I says, I don't pay an electric bill. Even on the hazy days I'm generating. I says, it works great Michigan's a great state for solar.
Do you pay into the grid?
So
you actually earn a little.
Well, they just changed it, so I do.
Okay.
But I've had solar for about 10 years. DTE, they're crooks. they were charging me $16 a month to sell my extra
They were charging
energy.
you to sell your energy.
Right, and then they would give me wholesale costs for it, and they would make the difference. But I had to pay $16 a month. And then at the end of the year, you add up the $16 and all that, and what you got, and you didn't get squat because you didn't make anything but they just recently changed that.
Good.
For now, for instance, the reason I found this out is I got an electric bill for $7. And I called. I says, and I was thinking it's going to be $16, you know, and then if you go over, it's going to be 16 plus. So anyway, I called, and they says, no, you only use $7 worth of our energy. So now they're doing it legit. So so whatever you don't use, you get credit for.
Yeah, that's
you know?
nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you don't. That's why now I don't pay an electric bill. You know.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I played a gig with a little solar battery yesterday.
Oh, that's neat.
That's pretty
I love solar stuff. My daughter bought me some solar globes, and one of my sons got me some solar outdoor lights, you know,
nice.
and my deck. And so every night they're come home from a gig, got the lights on the deck, you know.
Oh, it's nice to go without electricity. Like, say, for example, this amp that I got sitting right next to us here is completely battery powered. So if you need to go play a wedding out in the middle of a field, or whatever, you have plenty of power for a couple hours, and it's pretty loud and it sounds cool. So,
well, down by Milan, kind of between me and Milan, they're putting this guy bought the property, all this farmland, and he's putting both sides of the road miles, and as far as you can see, solar farm he's putting in. Right now, I haven't seen any panels go up yet, but they work 6 days a week. And I mean, it's just solar after solar, you know,
man,
and I love seeing that, you know.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, you got those, what do they call those, the woman that always complains about, what do they call it? Well, it doesn't matter,
Karen?
but you got these,
Karen?
Yeah, you got these Karens. No offense to any of the real Karens out there. You got these Karens. Well, what are we going to do for farmland? Well, we can't eat. I'm thinking to myself, if we don't have a planet, you ain't gonna eat anyway. You know?
Right.
And this weather we're having right now
Yeah.
is why we're having it. It's climate change.
Yeah,
you know?
global climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we better not go any further because this starts getting political.
It already has.
Yeah.
But
Back to terrible gigs that went horribly.
tell us about yours, Andy.
I got a Scourge story for you, Michael.
All right, tell me about
so
this.
Scourge was my band in high school. Shout out to Matt and Irv and even Eric. But anyway,
Even Eric.
he was the singer, and it didn't end great with Eric. But anyways, I mean, everybody's got a band in high school, right, that they reminisce about or whatever, and I thought we were pretty good. But anyways, speaking of gigs that went bad, we had a cassette tape, and we mailed it in. We were in high school, and we mailed it into the Domino's Farms High School Talent Contest. And we got a letter in the mail a couple weeks later. Thanks, everybody. We received 1,600 entries, and we've chosen 4 acts to play, and Scourge is one of them.
Oh, wow.
And we were like,
Wow.
wow, what are the chances we'll win first, second, or third prize? I mean, there's only 4 acts.
That's right.
And so we drove all the way to Domino's Farms. It's in, it's in Ann Arbor-ish.
Yeah, in our
Towards
Plymouth.
Plymouth, but yeah.
And it's only for high school kids. And we got free pizza, and that was the highlight of it because it's, Domino's world headquarters. And the first act got up there, and it was like a couple guys in bow ties and like those Dixieland hats, and they were telling jokes and playing.
Probably a banjo in there somewhere.
It was kind of like a corny, hello, my baby, hello, my darling, like they had a cane, and it was kind of like very silly.
Dixieland.
And then the next one was like a dancer that did like a jazz improvisation dance, which was great. And then another one was this kid with the keyboard, and he had this sequencer / synthesizer, and he's like, listen to my space age music. And he just sat there and like didn't look up, and so there wasn't much of a show. And then we got up there, and I thought, man, we are gonna just really blow these guys away, right? And so we start the intro of the song, and halfway through the first verse, I look down and my guitar is unplugged because I had stepped on the cord and I had unplugged the guitar. So the lesson of the day is, always take your cord and go through your guitar strap and then plug it in, right?
Yeah.
I learned that day, but I've always done it that way ever since.
But what I wonder is, how can you make a comparison between a Dixieland, a dance, a sequencer, and a heavy metal band? I mean, I can see 4 heavy metal bands.
Well, maybe they were just trying to get a variety. I don't know.
That's quite a variety.
I think, if everyone would have just ignored it and I would have just plugged it in and we kept the show going, it would have been great. But for some reason, the singer kind of stopped singing, got down on the ground, grabbed my cord, and, tried to plug it in and, couldn't get it and, was missing. And we spent, I don't know, a minute or two trying to plug the guitar back in. And so it would have been better if he just would have not stopped the show.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah. However,
we didn't win, by the way.
I don't think that would have been better because you wouldn't have this story. And
that's right.
All we're doing is we're building memories and we're having experiences that give us feelings. Like I've got this plaque in my office in Ann Arbor. It says, "Music is what feelings sound like." And I wholeheartedly believe that. We put our heart and soul into what we do. This is our passion. And if we don't have bad stories, how do we gauge the good stories?
It's sort of like you have a breakup, and then you end up listening to songs about breakups or something. You know what I mean? But it's the music part
feelings.
that music and feelings are hand in hand.
They absolutely are. Some people grieve to music. Some people celebrate to music.
Yeah.
It's the universal.
Some people probably don't want to hear music at all.
Yes, there are those.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the Romantics earlier, and I just thought of this. I used to read like Cream magazine.
Yeah,
I
oh,
loved.
yeah.
I had a subscription.
Oh, yeah.
I had a subscription to Mad magazine.
Of course.
And anyway, so I was reading one of those when the Romantics were happening,
Yeah.
and their drummer, I can't recall his name, but he had to leave the band because I think it was drugs.
Yeah.
And so I heard that he was leaving the band, or they booted him. And so I jumped on it. This way before internet or anything.
Yeah.
So I jumped on it, and I happened to have a cassette of me singing What I Like About You, playing the drums and singing it. And
With the band?
With my band at the time.
Yeah.
And so he was the lead singer on that and playing drums.
Oh.
So I sent them that. And again, this before internet and all that. I sent them that. They wrote back and said, "Do you have any pictures?" So I have a picture. I was playing drums in West Park in Ann Arbor. They have a what do they call that? A dome or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was and I didn't have a shirt on. It was summertime because I don't like to wear shirts if I'm playing drums for sure. You know, or anytime.
No
for that
drummers
matter.
do.
Yeah, right.
I do.
So
I've got this.
yeah. So anyway, I sent him this, and I play barefoot,
Yeah.
And so
Really?
I had no shirt,
Wow.
no shoes, and I say it was before internet. And I just had the one copy, so I called the photographer guy that took the picture and begged him for another one. He wanted to charge me. I'd probably give him $10 or whatever. And then I sent off that picture,
Yeah.
and I guess I just wasn't pretty boy enough, because I never heard back,
Well, don't you have to have like dark hair, kind of? I mean, they weren't long-haired folks. They were.
Well, not really. My hair wasn't quite this long then,
Wow.
no, but still, I
Yeah.
don't know.
My hair used to look like that a while ago, but I've got this nice skullet going.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Michigan bands, I'd be interested in what you think of Greta Van Fleet, because everyone says they sound like Zeppelin.
They're overrated big time. They got a freaking Grammy. That you listen to their early stuff. Nothing against you guys, but I call it like it is. So a drummer I was with, he somehow his brother, somebody was getting him backstage and all that when they first came out, and the drummer's not even playing on time, man. He's
No.
kind of, and then they got a freaking Grammy, and I don't really think the story was they were trying to be Zeppelin.
No,
That's just how the
no.
guy sang,
Right.
But I think that even if the drummer was rock solid, I thought they're overrated. They're not
Well,
really jumped out at me.
And the drummer makes the band because it's the driving force.
Yeah,
we are the driving
definitely.
force. I think they're unique because there were three brothers and some other guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was part of their little boy band kind of vibe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I put it this way: they deserve their success because they tried hard and sounded good, but I don't think that they have like the technical chops of Zeppelin.
No, not even close.
I don't think anybody does.
No.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to measure up
I
to.
mean, that Bonham driving.
Yeah, I
bass.
can't play. I've been playing drums all my life. I can't play Zeppelin.
No.
There's
No
a
way.
certain tone to like even just the bass drum or the drums in general
Yeah.
that the Greta Van Fleet recording doesn't have. It's
No.
not the fault of the player.
No.
It's maybe the fault of the producer.
Most
who
likely.
Maybe, I don't know, what did he need to do? Record it in the hallway or in the stairway, or, he just lacked that magic that you hear on a lot of the Zeppelin recordings. But
And a lot of those 70s recordings, they were pretty raw.
Oh yeah.
They sat in a studio and played the song over and over and over again. Overdubs didn't really kick into, 80s?
yeah, you might just
Probably when
record a drum
digital
set.
or-
You might just like set the drum set up like at the bottom of the stairway and press record. And these days it's very produced and
And
EQ'd
they got machines that do
compressed
all
and-
that.
Yeah.
make
Well, add it
stairway,
digitally.
Yeah.
Well, there's a story where on I'm a Beach Boy freak,
Sure.
and on one of their albums, they had Ringo play drums on it on one of the
Really?
songs. They set the drums up in the swimming pool, of course, with no
Okay.
water.
Well, yeah.
I don't think Ringo's a great swimmer anyway, but yeah, and then once I read that, I really listened, and it is kind of a different drum sound,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big Ringo fan.
Me too.
I just-
Yeah.
Recently, I don't know when this was recorded, but I just watched this. I think it was on Amazon. this retrospective with a lot of country musicians and Ringo. And Dolly Parton talked about him, and some other of the famous older country artists, talked about Act Naturally and some of the other country stuff that he did. And it was great to watch because, Ringo sang and he played drums on a couple tunes, and it was fun.
I've seen Ringo probably 6 times now, I think.
Yeah.
And the last time I got, I think it was fourth row.
Nice.
And my son Jeremiah Mack, and his girlfriend, Mackenzie, they went with me. And because Jerry's a Ringo freak too, and where did he get that from?
I wonder.
And anyway, and he had Edgar Winter in the band.
Oh yeah.
And Edgar Winter was like from here to the lights there, if not closer. I mean, you could almost smell him, But that was a great show. Unfortunately, Ringo was at the other end of the stage. But
Edgar Winter, man.
Oh yeah, but all the Beatles songs that Ringo sang, he sang back on the drums. He had 2 drum sets.
Right.
And the drummer, shame on me for not knowing his name, but his tour drummer is from Detroit, know.
Okay.
And anyway, so I thought it was awesome. And then all this solo stuff, Ringo would get up front and sing,
Yeah.
And he started using the same guys, like Edgar Winters with them year after year and whatnot. But I remember one year he had the bass player or the lead singer from the Babies. And he played bass. So Ringo had no dead weight in the band. If you're in his band, you better be playing instrument.
I think Whistle played with him for a while.
Yeah, Whistle did. I never caught that one.
Joe Walsh.
Heavy
hitters.
Yeah, and he had some good ones that I kind of missed out on.
Yeah.
But I thought that was so cool. And then they go around the horn, So Edgar Winter would do one, and then maybe the guy from from the
Babies.
The Babies, they do one of his hits, and then they go around the horn and they do, I'm trying to think some other musicians, but and then did I mention there's a guy named Ringo?
I've heard that.
Yeah. So he was in the band.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool. And we were doing that in Kinks and the Crew. We'd go around the horn. Every third song I'd sing lead on.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. But it was like this super group.
Yeah.
And then you go to see someone else. I go see another band, and it's like. That's all you got? You don't have any special guests here? Just you guys?
Right. I'm for the first time fronting a band. I call it Bark's Tales. Snyder Barker, Bark's Tales. And I'm the lead singer, which is really, I sing all the songs. And Andy is starting to do some of the backing vocals, and he's an amazing guitar player, and I'm just a strummer. And we've got a great solid bass player, and we just picked up a drummer, and I hope he sticks with us. But he's rock solid, and they're all within, would you say, 5 miles of here?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
we're all local,
which is really nice because it makes practicing a
whole
lot easier.
Yeah.
You saw that with your neighborhood buddies.
Yeah, right,
But,
right.
I was used to being behind the drum set, that's my Zen drum.
Oh.
Wow. And I was with a duo that I played Zen drum, and I got to be up front, and I sang maybe slightly more than half of the songs, and that was fun. But now I'm doing it with a guitar, which is very cool.
Yeah, I own some guitars and some Casios and stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't know. A long time ago, a bass player buddy of mine, he was also, I think, played maybe with Mitch Ryder or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was telling me, I remember hearing him say something. They said, well, don't you play another instrument? He said, man, I'm still trying to master the bass. And so I would think that too, which I wish I hadn't had that mindset, but I'm still trying to master the drums, you know.
But, I mean, you are a great classical guitar player. You are a great
Thanks for saying that.
violin. You're good in violin.
But I dabble on all the other instruments.
Yeah, but as a teacher, you both can probably say there's never mastering.
Oh,
We
you
never
never,
master
yeah,
it.
you never get there, really.
Yeah. But what would you do once you're there?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Then it's all
Yeah,
downhill.
Find another interest like painting. That's my answer.
Yeah. So to me, if we keep that mind of a student, and we recognize that we're always learning, then we always have things to look forward to.
Well, I think it was the great Walinda or something, the high wire guy.
Oh yeah.
He said in a quote, "My life is on that wire. the rest of my life is waiting.
Yeah.
I get
That's
it.
nice.
You know, so
Yeah.
you could sort of say my life is on stage, you know, playing in the band. The
Yeah.
rest of my life is waiting. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, that's not what you do for a living. It's what you do to live.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way
Yeah.
to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, music is passion.
Yeah.
It's been my passion for a long time, but I never had the. I never thought I could play guitar, you know. And then COVID hit, and you know, I was acquainted with Andy, and I connected with him. We did some lessons online, and he started doing lessons with me here, and that just kind of built and grew. And I have great gratitude,
Yeah.
you know. And living
yeah.
life with gratitude to me is important too, you know.
Well, and music keeps you young, you know.
Oh man!
I mean, we joke around because there's, you know, the guys in my band have known for just about ever, except for
Yeah.
Patrick, of course. And we joke around saying that, you know, how can you believe we're still doing this at our age, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, knocking it out of the park doing it, you
Well,
know?
yeah, and you know, you're a singer and a drummer that people know, recognize, and
Oh, yeah.
and locally, you know, in this part of Michigan, southeastern Michigan, you know, you're pretty well respected.
Yeah, when my thank you.
Welcome.
When my kids, when they were little, we'd go, you know, go shopping or go wherever, and they'd be like, "Daddy-o, you know everyone," you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, there might be some people out there watching that, you know, maybe came from families like mine where the advice was, you know, don't go into music because it's a waste of time or you'll never make it or, you know, it's a bad idea. And 99% of people quit. But, you know, here we are, the three of us, we've all done music as a passion. And, you know, even if you don't make it big, it's still worthwhile.
Oh, yeah.
Get out there.
Yeah.
Hey, you can even be Michigan famous.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's a lot of success for, you know, getting up there on stage and playing,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's only for 10 people, or even if, hey, you only made $100 tonight. Great. Well, you could have made zero, or you could have stayed home.
Yeah,
or
right.
I made $26 yesterday.
Oh, right, really. I remember we used to have that habit of going out to eat at
Oh,
especially
yeah.
if you're playing back in the day. We were
Yeah.
playing. I was in a band, the cohort, and we were doing Bookies and Lily's
Yeah.
and those places, you know, the old Miami. And then there was that Mexican restaurant right under the bridge going to Canada. That's probably long gone
Oh,
now.
okay.
But everyone used to go there. You'd go there, and all the money you made went for your
Yeah.
food at that Mexican restaurant. I think they were open 24 hours or whatever. You see other band members in there, you know.
Or, you know, if you're like the Blues Brothers,
Oh,
you end up owning
yeah,
money.
right.
Yeah.
But, you know, this has been really great getting to know you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I
it's
appreciate
fun.
you coming
Yeah.
all the way from Ypsilanti.
Yeah. Actually, I live in Stony Creek, Michigan, which
Okay.
is just south of Ypsilanti.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
still on the map.
Yeah. But this has been Studio C, the listening room. I have to remember because it's listed
There it
right
is.
there. And
Episode 26.
I'm
right.
and we've been here with our special guest, Kinks Heiss. Check him out, Tall Cool One.
.com.
Kinks and the Crew, and
TallCool1Band.com.
Yep.
right. And I'd like to really thank you for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's a lot of fun telling the stories I have
Yeah.
through my career, you know.
Yeah, you've got great stories.
All right.
And I've been Mike Snyder Barker.
And I'm Andy Schiller.
And take care, man.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Peace out.
Rock on.